This is a video on applying acrylic on a client who has psoriasis on their hands and nails, inspired by a post of Doug Schoon's. My name is Michelle Cordes, and I'm a freelance nail artist. So these are nails that have had, she has psoriasis. You can see that there's a few little tiny healed spots on her hands. This is probably the one, I don't know if you can see quite right, this is probably the one that has the most damage to it. It actually lifts back to about there. So I'm actually going to go ahead and cut some of that off before I lay the acrylic on there. And as you can see, they're pretty ridgy, but they grow out okay. They just sort of fall apart once they get out here. Let's see, on this one you can see, because we had polish on it, so you can see that there's some pitting there, and that is the pitting from the psoriasis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and prep her nails now, and then I will come back and show you the application. So I'm going to take, and always following your manufacturer's instructions. I'm using Tammy Taylor nails, so I'm going to prep the nail in the direction that it grows with a 100 grit file. There's a difference on whatever you choose to use. I'm going to go ahead and take the edge of this off. We don't want anything hanging out that's going to catch on anything. So if you have any loose edges like this one does, you see that's really thin right there? I'm going to take that and take that off. And again, make sure that it's prepped the way the manufacturer tells you to. All right. Okay, so now we have the primer dry, so I'm going to reprime again because I'm using Tammy Taylor. I need to reprime so that the primer's wet. Now I'm going to take and I'm going to place this right at the edge of where her nail is. I'm going to let it kind of settle in, and then I'm going to just help use it to seal in the end of that peeling nail and just be able to make a little prosthetic nail. Now you don't want to make it too long, because if you make it too long, then it's going to be too heavy on the end and it'll lift up and then it can rip, and that could be a lot of problems. So and you want to make sure you get the whole thing sealed in. So I had a little tiny edge there that I needed to make sure it was taken care of. And now I'm going to take and do a nice little ball of acrylic right there. Of course, your mix ratio is going to be different if you're using a different product. So when you're rebuilding that, you can see that it's filled in all of the gaps and all of the holes. If you have any place extra that you feel like you need to put some more on, you certainly can. So especially right where we did that trimming back, if you feel like it still has a little bit of a bump so that when you file, you would be able to file through the acrylic, make sure that you get a little bit in there to make it perfect. Now, the other one that we're going to do for this is I'm going to do a nail where I extend it out a little bit. So I'm going to put the form on here, pop it up underneath there so that we can make sure that the form, now I'm not really adding a lot of length, but I do want to make sure that I get the end of this sealed down because it's a little shorter than the other one. So we're going to take clear acrylic and you're going to put it right here. You don't even need to put it on the form. because we're not adding like this huge amount of length. I'm basically adding a little bit of length and sealing in the end, because that's going to keep it when the nail starts to crumble away, which as good as they look from the rest of the nails will happen. Don't let it fool you. That's 10 years of experience with this client talking. So we took and bumped that out a little bit, and then go through and just treat it like a regular overlay. A little push if you need to. And again, my mix ratio is pretty wet because I'm using a product that's the way it's designed to be. So, and then take a look and make sure that you're not missing any spots. I'm going to add a little bit more in right there just to make sure that we don't have any issues. And there we go. So that way we just capped it on the edge a little bit, so that way it'll match the rest of them when we lay the rest of the product. You can actually see on this nail too that this one's actually a little bit more misbehaving than the others. It has a little onycholysis line. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do the rest. Okay, so the acrylic is all set up. So we're going to take, and you just want to just ever so slightly, really lightly, pull it away from the edge of the skin, so that when you, by pressing down on the skin, so that when you file, you're not killing them. Plus, I also primed the edge of my file with another file, so I took that sharp edge off. But you want to make it as close to a natural nail as you can. We want it to stick to the skin a little bit so that it stays anchored, but at the same time, we don't want there to be anything that's going to catch here in a week or two. When it starts to grow out, we want to make sure there isn't any little parts that are hanging out that'll catch on things, because again, we don't want it to rip. So we're going to take and just kind of shape that out a little bit, and then I'm going to take and smooth this out. And we did clear acrylic on her nails. We're actually going to finish them off with shellac and a little bit of glitter. So I'm going to leave them not buffed to a shine, because I want the shellac to stick on top of the acrylic. So let's take a look at this and make sure that we've got it nice and even. And so then, of course, since we're nail techs and we can't not see the finished product of something, I will bring us back right after top coat so that we can see the end result, because, of course, we have to see completeness. All right, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and take and run a buffer over this really quickly, so that way that you can see that it's all sealed up in there. And she has a nail again. So this is all done. So I used shellac in Rubble and a Easy Flow glitter in Jasper, and we just did a glitter fade. So when you look at all of the nails, you can see now that they all look even, and they're all the same length. And so now she has good, and like this nail that we did that that we put the little bit of a form on, you can see that it's not any difference in thickness from the other ones, if you can see that on the camera. I don't know if you can see that. And so that's it. Ta-da! All done. Remember, as nail artists, we do not diagnose or treat any disease. Please work with a medical professional.